A gleaming red SUV sat proudly in the driveway of the old Baxter house. Marla's tired eyes narrowed as her sister squealed beside it, champagne in hand. The leaves rustled under her loafers as she stepped out of her reliable gray Honda, its paint dulled by years of commuting between client meetings and the grocery store. She adjusted her scarf against the late November wind. A turkey-shaped wreath hung on the neighbor's door. Across the street, the Hudson kids were raking leaves into piles bigger than themselves. She hadn't expected to see a brand new car in their driveway, certainly not in the family's financial situation, or at least what she thought was the family's financial situation. "Oh my God, isn't she gorgeous?" Jenna twirled her champagne flute, sloshing dangerously close to the car's polished hood, red velvet pearl. The salesman practically cried, "Giving me the deal." "Can you believe it?" Marla blinked. "Where did you get the money?" Jenna's manicured hand gestured vaguely behind her. "Ask them." She tossed her head toward the porch where Mr. and Mrs. Baxter stood side by side, clutching their own glasses and smiling like proud sponsors. Marla's jaw tensed. The cold air stung her cheeks, but it was nothing compared to the slow burn rising in her chest. "We used the family emergency fund." "Dear," her mother called, brushing a gray strand behind her ear. "You always said it was for everyone, didn't you?" "That was my house down payment," Marla said quietly. Her father chuckled, shifting his weight. "Well, technically, it was in the shared account. You're always saying how money should move, right? Jenna has job interviews next week. She needs to make a good impression." Jenna beamed. "You should see the interior. Heated seats, Apple CarPlay massage mode in the driver's seat. Want a ride?" Marla didn't move. "You used the account without telling me. Don't be dramatic." Jenna's tone took on its usual dismissiveness. "You'll make it back in no time. Numbers are your thing, right?" Her fingers curled into the fleece lining of her coat. This wasn't the first time last Christmas she'd covered the cost of the new furnace when theirs gave out, hoping, believing they'd reimburse her in January. They didn't. She'd told herself it was family. That's what family did. "Can we talk inside alone?" she asked, her voice low but steady. Her mother waved her off. "Not now, Marla. Let's not ruin the mood. I just need a minute." Her father shook his head, already turning back toward the house. "You're making a scene. From the porch next door." Carmen Rivers sipped her tea and peered over the rim of her mug. The scarf she'd knitted herself in olive green fluttered in the breeze. She shook her head slightly as if confirming a long-held suspicion about Marla's temperament. Marla caught the glance. She held it for half a second, then dropped her eyes to her phone. She unlocked it with a trembling thumb and opened her banking app. $127. 43. Her breath came shallow and cold. $42,800, 2 years of living lean, skipping vacations, saying no to new shoes and takeout. All gone, no call, no heads up, no apology. Jenna twirled again. "You're just jealous because they love me more," she said with a wink. "And I'm living my best life while you're, well, you." Marla exhaled through her nose. "I'm the strong one, remember?" she said coldly, "and dials the bank." Marla couldn't sleep. Instead, she sat in her flannel robe auditing her own betrayal. The digital glow of her laptop painted soft shadows across her modest apartment. Outside November, rain drummed gently against the windows, pooling at the corners of the cracked sidewalk below. The radiator hissed every few minutes, its efforts valiant but insufficient. A half-empty mug of peppermint tea cooled beside her keyboard. She clicked through a maze of statements and transaction histories, her breath fogging slightly each time she sighed. The emergency fund, the one her parents had pilfered for Jenna's gleaming SUV, was only the beginning. Marla's fingers hovered over a familiar line item, $300 withdrawal 3 months ago. Labeled Pet Care, JB. JB stood for Jenna Baxter. Marla never owned a pet. Her stomach churned. Dad once called her his little CPA when she helped him balance the checkbook at 13, back when math felt like magic and not a weapon. A notification pinged from her inbox. The HOA newsletter. She opened it almost absently, and there she was, Jenna front and center, smiling beneath a banner that read, "Community Spotlight, Young Entrepreneur Inspires Neighbors." Marla scoffed. According to the blurb, Jenna was launching a mobile yoga business, no mention of whose credit funded the luxury SUV she planned to teach from. She slammed the laptop shut and stood grabbing her coat. Outside, the rain had tapered off to a soft drizzle, leaving glistening reflections on the quiet Fair Hollow streets. The Bell and Dime Diner. A fixture since the 50s welcomed her with the scent of bacon grease and nostalgia. Its wood-paneled walls were cluttered with vintage license plates and high school football photos. A server with a bouffant hairdo and a name tag that read, Cheryl waved from behind the counter. "Hey there, sweetheart. Sit wherever." Tom Keller was already in a booth by the window, his tie loosened, hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug. He looked up as she approached, brow furrowing in concern. "Hey, Marla. Everything okay?" She slid into the seat opposite him, pulling a manila envelope from her bag. "Define." "Okay." He opened the folder and flipped through the pages. Bank statements, signature cards, scans of loan agreements. One by one, his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "Wait, this account's still active?" he asked, tapping a form. "You opened this with your mom in college. I thought I closed it years ago." "Apparently not." Tom leaned back, the vinyl booth creaking. "And they've been using it ever since, like it's their personal pipeline," she said bitterly. A new wave of rain spattered the diner window as Cheryl refilled their coffees. "Need anything else, sugar?" Marla shook her head. "Just clarity." Tom tapped a refinance agreement near the bottom of the stack. This is a problem." She glanced down. Her name, her signature only. It wasn't hers. "I never signed that," she whispered. He looked up sharply. "You sure I would remember signing off on a condo refinance, especially one worth $200,000? Tom's fingers tightened around the paper. "This isn't just betrayal," he said. "It's felony fraud." Before she could answer, a knock echoed at her apartment door hours later. Back home, Marla opened it to find Carmen Rivers standing there, pie dish in hand, apple. Carmen said cheerily, though her eyes darted past Marla's shoulder. "Had extra from the batch I made for the church potluck. Thought you might want a slice." Marla hesitated. "Thanks. Big day, huh?" Carmen's smile strained. "That SUV out front's a beauty, not mine." Carmen's lips pursed. "Well, Jenna's got spunk. Reminds me of your mother at her age." Marla forced a polite smile. "Spunk isn't supposed to come with identity theft." Carmen blinked clearly, caught off guard. "Oh, well, I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding. Your parents are good people." Marla didn't answer. Instead, she took the pie, thanked her softly, and shut the door with care. Back at the table, the refinance form lay open. Her fake signature staring back at her like a smudge of truth she could no longer scrub clean. Marla couldn't sleep. Instead, she sat in her flannel robe auditing her own betrayal. The soft tick of the wall clock was the only sound in the room. Its rhythm a cruel reminder that the night was slipping away while her thoughts refused to rest. She sat cross-legged on the worn sofa laptop perched on a cushion, the screen's glow illuminating her furrowed brow and the stack of bank documents spread across the coffee table. Outside, a slow November rain tapped at the windows like a metronome to her gathering fury. Dad used to call her his little CPA back when the numbers on the checkbook were manageable, and she'd beam with pride at getting them to balance. Now those same numbers betrayed her. She scrolled through the shared family account, one she'd foolishly kept open from her college days, watching a timeline of silent withdrawals take shape. Dental work. A puppy deposit, Jenna's yoga certification class, none of which she authorized, and then came the forged documents. The name looked like hers, but she never slanted her B like that. A rustle outside the apartment drew her attention. The HOA newsletter had been delivered. She opened the door and grabbed the plastic-wrapped bundle. The headline splayed across the front stopped her cold. Community Spotlight Jenna Baxter, mobile wellness maven of Fair Hollow. A smiling Jenna posed in front of her new SUV yoga mat under one arm, the other hand resting confidently on the vehicle's hood. Marla's jaw tightened. She changed into jeans and a raincoat, pulled her hair into a messy bun, and headed out. The diner was only a few blocks away, its red neon open sign flickering softly in the mist. The Bell and Dime diner was just as she remembered, walls lined with old newspaper clippings and Polaroids, a ceiling fan that groaned with each turn, and the same server with the mile-high bouffant. "Well, good evening, sweetheart," Cheryl chirped as Marla stepped inside. "Your usual booth's open." Tom Keller looked up from his corner table. He stood as she approached, brushing pastry crumbs off his shirt. Marla. "Everything okay?" She slid into the booth, producing the envelope from her purse and placing it between them. "That depends on how you define okay." He opened the envelope and began reading. His face darkened as he leafed through the pages: bank transfers, joint account activity, and most damning of all, a refinancing agreement she'd never seen before. "This is your name," he murmured, tapping a page. "It's not my signature." He studied the document. "You're sure?" "I sign my name 20 times a week. That's not me." Tom leaned back, brows knit. This is serious, Marla." "I know." The diner's warmth felt suddenly oppressive. Marla loosened her scarf as Cheryl came by with 2 steaming mugs. "On the house," she said with a wink. "Y'all look like you're solving the world's problems." "We're trying," Tom muttered. As the rain beat harder against the glass, Tom shook his head. "How long's this been going on?" "Too long," Marla replied. "I just never thought they'd go this far." He nodded slowly. "We'll need to get copies from the bank notarized signatures, maybe talk to a lawyer. I can help with the county clerk's side at least." She managed a thin smile. "Thanks, Tom." By the time she returned home, the streetlights were casting golden halos through the fog. As she reached her door, she spotted Carmen climbing her porch steps next door, carrying a pie dish wrapped in a checkered towel. "Oh, Marla," the elderly woman called. "I made too much for the church dinner apple if you're interested." Marla hesitated. "Thank you." Carmen's eyes darted down the hallway behind Marla. Saw the newsletter. "Jenna looks so grown up, doesn't she?" Marla's fingers clenched around the pie plate. "She looks confident." Carmen chuckled, missing the tension. "She always had that spark. Your parents must be so proud." "They are," Marla said, voice flat. Carmen tilted her head. "You've always been the practical one." "Steady." "Maybe it's time to let loose a little." "Eh?" "Jenna's finding her way." Marla forced a smile. "Is that what she's doing?" "Well," Carmen shrugged. "She's making something of herself. That SUV's no small feat." Marla glanced toward the window where the car still gleamed under the streetlight. "No, it's not inside." She placed the pie on the counter and returned to her papers. The refinance agreement stared back at her, the fake signature like a slap. Tom's voice from the diner echoed in her mind, clear and grave. "This isn't just betrayal," Tom says. "It's felony fraud." Sunday sunshine masked the chill in the air and the chill in Marla's voice. The Baxter house was a flurry of movement laughter and the occasional shouted instruction as Thanksgiving preparations kicked into full swing. Jenna posed in front of the dining room window, snapping selfies with a pumpkin pie, while their mother fussed over the turkey in the oven. The backyard held a long table dressed in orange gingham, already half set for a dinner of 10 pa, and in the midst of it all, no one noticed Marla approaching the porch. She stood there for a moment, inhaling deeply. The scent of roasting turkey wafted through the window, mingling with the crisp scent of leaves and damp earth. Carmen across the street was watering her porch mums. She paused, glancing up at the sudden stillness around the Baxter yard. Marla stepped inside. No one had invited her. No one had noticed her silence since her bank call. She was just the quiet older sister after all. The one who always brought the sweet potato casserole, the one who carved the turkey when Dad's arthritis flared up, the one who remembered everyone's food allergies and carried the emotional weight of the room like a dutiful waitress with a tray too full. This year she carried something different. In her hand was a manila folder, slightly wrinkled at the edges. She walked into the kitchen without removing her coat. Jenna looked up first. "Marla." "Oh, good, you're early. Can you baste the turkey in 20? Marla didn't blink. "I won't be staying." Mrs. Baxter turned from the sink, her hands damp with soap. "Now don't be dramatic, honey. Sit down. I've got your favorite tea." "I'm not here for tea." Marla laid the folder on the counter gently but deliberately. "This is a summary of every withdrawal from the emergency family account over the last 8 months. The room went still. Even the bubbling gravy on the stove seemed to hush. I cross-checked each one. Jenna's SUV. $42,800, the refinance of the house, signed under my name without my consent. She turned to her parents. "That's felony-level fraud." Jenna scoffed. "God!" "Marla, it was a family account. You're acting like I stole from a stranger." "You did?" Marla replied softly. "You just didn't see me as someone who mattered." Mr. Baxter cleared his throat. "Sweetheart, we thought we assumed you'd understand Jenna needed Jenna, always needs Marla," said her voice even. "And I'm always the one who gives." No one ever asked what I needed. Across the street. Carmen watched from her porch mug in hand. The sound of a church bell rang faintly in the distance. She'd seen Marla's car parked across the block earlier, but assumed it was another casserole drop-off. Now she squinted through the kitchen window, watching Marla speak with such stillness it unnerved her. Back inside, Marla reached into her coat and pulled out 2 printed letters. "Effective today. I've closed all shared accounts. I've removed myself from every co-signature. I've contacted the bank and a lawyer. From this point forward, we'll deal through formal channels," Jenna gasped. "Are you kidding me? You're blowing this up over a car." "I'm ending a pattern," Marla replied, "one that I let continue too long." Mrs. Baxter reached for her, but Marla stepped back. "I'm not angry anymore," she added. "I'm done." With that, she picked up her folder and walked out the back door. Her boots crunched against the fallen leaves as she stepped into the backyard, ignoring the confused calls behind her. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry. She walked with a grace that made Carmen, still watching from her porch, straighten slightly in her chair. No casseroles this year. No seat at the table, just folders in hand and a truth that had been too long silent. That night, as the wind picked up and dusk rolled over Fair Hollow, a soft figure crossed the street. Carmen stood at Marla's mailbox with a small envelope. Her handwriting trembled, but the message was clear. "You were right. I'm sorry." The scent of nutmeg and roasted turkey drifted through the old chapel basement. Marla hadn't expected to spend Thanksgiving among strangers. Rain had turned to snow sometime between dusk and dinner, blanketing Fair Hollow. In the first soft coat of winter, Marla stood at the threshold of the church's basement flannel scarf, clutched tight in one hand, and a foil-covered apple pie balanced in the other. The room was warm, too. Warm, really, with the mingling of space heaters and simmering casseroles, and filled with the sound of gentle laughter over worn folding tables. She felt like an intruder in someone else's tradition. Last year, she had made 3 pies for her family, pecan, pumpkin, and cherry lattice. She remembered the way Jenna had walked in late, flippantly critiquing the crust, and how no one said thank you. This year, Carmen had handed her a plate and said simply, "Sit. You've done enough." Marla did sit eventually. Between a retired high school librarian and a man with a navy tattoo faded into blue-gray lines, they passed her cornbread stuffing and stories about ration books, milk delivery, and a Halloween blizzard in '78. The napkins were paper. The cranberry sauce jiggled suspiciously from a can, and someone had written, "Give thanks" on poster board with glitter glue. Still, it felt warmer than the past 10 holidays combined. She listened more than she spoke, but when the conversation dipped toward favorite Thanksgivings, she surprised herself by answering. "Mine's this one," she said. "I don't think I've ever sat at a table where I didn't owe anyone anything." The librarian smiled gently. "That's not nothing, dear." Across the room, Carmen hovered protectively when a younger woman in a sparkly sweater whispered something about that house drama on Maple Street. Carmen turned sharply and said, "You might want to know the full story before spreading gossip over green bean casserole." It was the first time Marla saw her not as nosy or dismissive, but as an ally. Tom arrived later than expected, brushing snow off his coat and stomping lightly at the entrance. His face lit up when he spotted Marla. "Sorry," he mouthed, sliding into the seat beside her with a sheepish grin. "I had to stop by the office." She offered him a plate and a soft smile. "This one's better than the courthouse cafeteria." Tom dug in gratefully. Then, when the table quieted during a blessing circle led by the church's oldest volunteer, he leaned toward Marla and whispered, "You remember Garrett from housing? He just emailed. Wants you on the team. Full benefits pension track. Big leap." Marla blinked. "You're serious. Serious enough." I printed the offer letter. She couldn't help the laugh that escaped a small, incredulous sound that drew a few smiles down the table. Much later, as coats were retrieved and leftover slices of pumpkin pie were tucked into foil squares, Marla helped fold chairs and stack trays near the kitchen pass-through. An older widow, her back bent, but her eyes sharp, patted her arm. Sometimes she said softly, "God removes family to make space for people who treat you like family." Marla stood at the chapel's steps, cheeks pink from both praise and cold watching snow swirl beneath the amber glow of a street lamp. For once, she felt like she had a place to go even if it wasn't where she came from. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She pulled it out with a calm that surprised her. One new message from Jenna. "They're repossessing my SUV. Happy now." Marla stood silently at the edge of the cracked walkway, the gravel crunching faintly beneath her boots. Before her rose a weathered craftsman house, its paint gently peeling. The yellow door dulled by time, but still glowing faintly beneath the overcast December sky. The realtor, bundled in a green wool coat, gestured with a hopeful smile. "It's not perfect," she said, "but it's yours if you want it." Marla's breath steamed in the frigid air. She didn't speak right away. Her gaze drifted to the large bay window just above the porch swing, and for a second she could see her 16-year-old self dreaming of casseroles cooling on the sill. Warm laughter filling a wide kitchen. That old dream had survived betrayals and broken promises. Somehow it still beat quietly inside her. She nodded once, almost to herself. Inside the house, the walls held the scent of aged wood polish, something faintly floral, maybe lavender. The floors creaked like they had stories to tell. As she walked room to room, her fingers trailed lightly along the surfaces. Her home, or soon-to-be. Later that afternoon, bundled in her gray coat, she made her way to Garrett's office. The county building was warm, smelling faintly of toner and peppermint from the receptionist's candy bowl. Tom had already arrived, flipping through a folder thick with documents. Garrett, ever precise, slid a single-page report toward Marla. "Resume fraud," he said simply. "Jenna's been claiming your certifications and experience for years in HOA records and side contracts." Marla blinked slowly, absorbing the words like a slow, cold wind. "Why would they do that?" Garrett leaned back. "Because she could. Because your name meant something and she never thought you'd look." Marla looked down at her gloved hands. "Well, I'm looking now." They signed affidavits. Tom reviewed the new set of charges with her identity theft, forgery, embezzlement. There was still more to come, he warned, but this was the beginning. Outside, the sky had dimmed to steel gray. Snow threatened but hadn't yet fallen. As Marla approached her apartment building, she spotted a small bundle of soft color on her doorstep, a knitted blanket thick and warm, folded neatly with a card tucked into the corner. For the next porch swing, it read in Carmen's careful hand. The kindness made her throat tighten. Inside, she sipped hot chocolate at the kitchen counter, flipping through home listings and workshop materials for the HOA. The president had asked her to speak next month, something about budgeting basics for new homeowners. She wasn't sure if she'd say yes, but it felt good to be asked. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jenna. "I know you're happy. Just admit it. I'm losing everything and you don't even care." Marla didn't respond. She closed her eyes and let the silence fill her chest. Hours later, nearing midnight, she heard a knock at her door, slow, uncertain. When she opened it, Jenna stood shivering in her hoodie, mascara streaked and shoulders trembling. "You're letting them ruin us," she whispered. Marla didn't flinch. Her voice was calm. "You ruined us." Jenna's lips parted like she might argue, but no words came. Marla closed the door gently. As she leaned her head against the cool wood, her phone rang. It was Tom. "The judge." "Just greenlit charges," he said. "Your parents and Jenna are being served tomorrow." Marla taped a handwritten sign above her mantel. This house was built with boundaries. The letters were careful, not ornamental. Each stroke deliberate, like every choice she had made in the last 2 months. Outside, snow whispered onto the stone steps. The porch light glowed warmly against the early evening, its soft golden circle stretching out to meet the chill. Bing Crosby's mellow voice drifted from a radio in the kitchen, crooning about a white Christmas. It was the kind of night that made you believe things might still turn out okay. Inside, the house still smelled of fresh paint and pine cleaner. Boxes lined the hallway like quiet reminders of work yet to be done, but Marla didn't mind. She'd assembled a makeshift table from 2 crates, and a salvage door draped it with an old quilt. On top sat banana bread, steaming mugs of cinnamon tea, and paper plates stacked with homemade cookies. Carmen arrived first, wrapped in a navy wool coat with specks of snow clinging to her hair. In her arms was a small orchid in a ceramic pot. "It might not bloom much in winter," she said as she handed it over. "But I thought it could learn to grow with you." Marla blinked, then smiled. "Thank you. That means more than you know." As guests trickled in, Tom with a tin of peppermint bark, Garrett with his usual quiet grin, a few HOA volunteers who'd once merely nodded at her in passing. Marla felt something she hadn't in years chosen. Not tolerated, not expected chosen. They laughed over mismatched chairs, talked about weather and recipes, and shared stories from decades past. A former librarian recited lines from Yeats. Someone mentioned ration stamps, and Carmen told a story about a blackout dance in '67. For once, Marla didn't feel like the extra Baxter daughter in the room. She felt rooted. Garrett waited until dessert to share his news. The seminar committee confirmed he said, lifting his glass. They want Marla to keynote the Finance with Integrity Summit next March. There were cheers. Tom whooped. Carmen looked nearly teary. Marla laughed, brushing a hand over her cheek. That's unexpected. Earned, Carmen corrected, pressing the orchid pot a little closer toward her. Later, when the guests had left and the quiet wrapped itself around the house again, Marla stood in her small living room, tea in hand. Her phone buzzed. A voicemail from Jenna. I know you think you've won, but you broke us, Marla. You'll see. Family doesn't come back once it's gone. She exhaled slowly. Then she opened her voicemail app, selected each saved message from Jenna and her parents, those long, whiny, guilt-laced recordings, and hit delete. In the attic, she tucked away the last of her labeled storage bins. On top sat a shoebox filled with old family photos. She closed it gently, slid it behind a stack of donation blankets, and pulled the cord to shut the attic door. The house sighed around her as she walked back down. In the kitchen, Carmen's orchid sat in the windowsill. A small pale bud had appeared. She hadn't noticed it before. She turned off the lights one by one, pausing only when she reached the mantel. There, beneath her handwritten sign, lay an unopened envelope. She hadn't seen it earlier. Curious, she opened it and gasped. It was from a National Scholarship Foundation. Inside was a letter formally addressed. Ms. Marla Baxter. Your courage and financial story have inspired our review board. We'd like to name a new grant in your honor. The Baxter Boundaries Scholarship. Her breath caught. She crossed the room, pulled a leather journal from the side table, and opened it to a blank page. In careful cursive, she wrote, "This chapter's closed. The next is mine to write." The porch light flickered gently against the falling snow, casting a warm glow on a home rebuilt, not with brick and mortar, but with courage and quiet grace. Marla's story reminds us that true strength often comes not from shouting, but from walking away calmly, completely, and with kindness intact. Sometimes the people we call family are not those who share our blood, but those who show up when the world grows cold, like a single lamp in a long winter night. One act of dignity can light the path for others to follow.